I think it's important that we share, that we communicate, that we are open, and that we grow together to achieve.
Because we are the voice of what wellness is about, and it's up to us to spread the message.
Hi everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for the next session in Professional Beauty Presents the Well Tomorrow Wellness Conference. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Eve Oxberry. I'm Head of Editorial for the Professional Beauty Group based in the UK. And I'm really excited this afternoon to have with me some of the best known and most active leaders in the UK spa industry, who I'll be introducing in just a moment. Today we're going to be discussing how our clients have changed during this period of shutdown. We heard this morning from Emma and the spa community over in the Middle East, how our spa teams are dealing with this challenge. So this afternoon, we're going to be looking at the customer, how their needs, their anxieties, and what they're looking for from spas has changed, and how we as an industry can adapt when we're allowed to reopen to accommodate that. Just a couple of things to mention before we start this afternoon. If you're watching this via the Zoom webinar platform itself, there will be an opportunity to ask our panelists some questions at the end of the session. So please put any questions into the Q&A box, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. Please do use this box rather than the chat box. So if you put them in the Q&A box, we'll get those answered at the end of the session. We are streaming live on multiple social media channels from around the world. So I know this session was very well subscribed. Lots of people registered for this session. So if you haven't managed to join us on the Zoom platform, then please do direct your friends over to the Facebook or YouTube channel of their professional beauty region. So whether that's UK, GCC, India, South Africa or Ireland. So we're live on all those channels, so they can watch over there if they've not managed to join us here on Zoom. And for those of you who are watching us now on these social media channels, welcome. If you would like to get more involved, you can try to register and join the Zoom platform. It may be that there are some spaces, but I think we are quite well subscribed. So on with the show. As I mentioned, our webinar session today is how to get your reopening strategy right for every client demographic. So we'll be answering the question that's on everyone's lips at the moment, which is what changes will spas have to make when they are allowed to reopen? For those that aren't yet reopened. So we're going to be looking at the strategies that my panelists are working on to lead their teams and protect their clients. But also we're going to take a look at how client demand has changed and how spa services and operations need to adapt to meet that. So I'm really happy to have with me, as I say, some fantastic UK spa leaders today. First off, we have Dave Courtine, who is Managing Director of Mosaic Health Clubs and Spas.
Hi Eve, how are you?
Good, thanks Dave. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
We've also got with us today Phil Murphy, who is Spa Director at the huge spa at Horcross Hall.
Good afternoon.
Hi Phil. Thanks for joining. We also have Emma Jane North, who is Spa Director at the Boston Lakes Resort.
Hi Eve.
Hi Emma Jane. And I'm also joined by Adam Chatterley, who's Chair of the UK Spa Association, who's in touch with spas across the country and has some interesting insights to share. Hi Adam.
Hi Eve, thanks for having me here.
So thanks everyone for joining us. So let's get started. All our panels over the next few days are going to talk about reopening strategies to some degree. So we will come on to the health and safety measures that you're all planning a little bit later. But I just wanted to lead today with a look at how clients' mindsets and wants and needs have changed over the last several weeks. I think being all based in the UK as we are, it would be strange not to start by just talking a little bit about what's happening here, because there's lots of new developments and what that means for the spa sector. I think we've all agreed Boris Johnson's address on Sunday wasn't crystal clear, but a lot of people are assuming spas will be part of the hospitality sector opening in July or possibly later. So it would just be good to get your thoughts, I think, as a panel on that in terms of what that means for your businesses and for the sector. Dave, perhaps we can start with you on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think if we open on the 4th of July, that'll be great. I think that's the best that we can take from his speech yesterday. I don't think it's going to be any sooner than that. And obviously it's going to be dependent upon what happens over the next few weeks in terms of the rate of infection and the numbers. I think for me, it was pretty clear actually for salons that they can reopen from the 4th of June. They're actually mentioned in the government's document that they came out after his speech. Less so for health clubs and day spas. And I think there are concerns at government level and with the medical guys around wet facilities and the transmission, which isn't backed up, we don't think, by scientific evidence. But certainly that's my concern, is that 4th of July is good to plan for and would be great, but I'm not sure at the moment whether we can do that with any certainty, and that's the concern. But hopefully, yeah, July will not be too far away.
Thanks, Dave. And Phil, do you have any initial thoughts on the announcements?
Just to agree with Dave to a certain degree. I mean, it's nice to finally have a bit of a date, although it might be quite a loose one. But I think it allows us and everyone to start planning a little bit and do have a bit, a real specific, whether it is 4th of July, fingers crossed it is, but at least we can start to really put our plans into place. And try and get a really good opening plan together, ready for the 4th of July.
Excellent, thank you. Emma Jane, any thoughts on this yourself? Are you planning for a July 4th opening at the moment?
I'd love to think we could do. I'm certainly in the camp of believing that it will take a little bit of time to understand where we're all going to be by the 4th of July. I think it's a really good aspect that we've got some sort of line in the sand. It does help us all just to make sure that we know we are easing out. But I echo the thoughts of other people that I've spoken to in the last few days, where they believe that we've just got to catch our breath, take our time and make sure we come back strong and not all scrabble to get back into it, because we've got to make sure our people are safe, and that's our team and our guests.
Absolutely, thank you. And Adam, any thoughts from you about these announcements this week?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said so far, and I'm certainly reading it as, if all goes well, spas to some degree will be able to open on the 4th of July. But equally, I think there's a want from all the spas out there to be given the exact guidelines that they can be opening up with. And I do think that that's not necessarily going to come from government. That's potentially going to have to come from us. And equally, it's about understanding what our clients' concerns and worries and fears and thoughts are about when we reopen, and making sure that we address those over the next 6 to 8 weeks to make sure that they feel as comfortable as they can when they start to come back.
Absolutely, I agree. I think we've been discussing here at Professional Beauty that we're not sure we're going to get concrete guidelines from government about specifics of the sector. So I think, us as an industry and as a community need to maybe put those together ourselves and work from that. So thank you. It's really interesting. So moving on to client demographics, which is, I guess, the initial focus of our discussion. We've all read research about the differing needs of Generation Z clients versus millennials or Generation X or baby boomers, but how do you think lockdown will have affected these differences? So starting, I suppose, with the use of technology, which has become increasingly important to all of our lives during lockdown. Phil, how do you think that that's going to impact on spas when we reopen? Do you think it's going to be more important, less, the same? How will things have changed?
I think personally, I think it's going to be more important. And I think if you can, if spas can sort of embrace technology, and if that's going to be able to help with reducing, any form of touch element, whether that be, the time it takes to check in, or enhance social distancing, if we can, look to, send spa schedules to clients, in advance. Like I said, reduce check-in times, whether that's people being able to check in online. If they can view spa brochures through digital screens around your spas rather than actually having them, physically, I can only see that being, a really, really good thing. I think most generations want the policies. So again, if they can, read up on them in advance with the use of tech, or whether that's something that they get communicated when they arrive at spa, I think it's really in it. I think a lot of spas are, embracing technology prior to this, but if they can advance it a little bit further, then it's going to obviously, be a good thing and help us sort of move on quicker.
Excellent, thank you. And Dave, what do you think about changes in technology? What about online booking?
Yeah, you know, I think from some of the research that we've done and the conversation we've had with our members, I think people are going to need reassurance, and I think they're only going to get that by actually having a conversation. So I think actually with online booking, immediately after we reopen, that's going to be less popular, because I think the people have got concerns, and there are real issues about, you know, can I catch this through sweat? How am I going to do this? And actually, we need to, you know, I think offer them reassurance that they'll only get with a conversation that they have over the phone. I'm not sure that online FAQs and so on will reassure them. So I think that's something we need to be aware of at the reopening process, is the importance of just reassuring our guests and our therapists as well. So you know, that's another big aspect that we need to think about in terms of this reopening.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes complete sense. I think, you know, we've all been so reliant on technology, but as personal touch comes back into the play, I think people are going to want a bit more of that kind of personal level of communication as well. Thank you. And I'd like to move on to the purpose of clients' visits. I suppose looking at why people come to spas, I guess priorities will have changed to a certain extent during lockdown initially. Do you think that younger people who have been so caught up in all these kind of Zoom calls and things that we are doing will be a bit more keen on some digital detox? And on the other hand, will all generations, I suppose, looking for more of an outdoor experience or to connect with nature? These things, I suppose, that we've been missing during lockdown, do you think that people will be looking to spas for these even more? Emma Jane, have you got any thoughts on that?
Hi, yes. I think the outdoor space has always been quite important, certainly for us anyway, to get that sort of connectivity back with nature. I completely concur that you've got to get all of your online aspects and as much technology as you can to minimise contact for the guests, but also to be able to put out the messages about safety and hygiene. But I think these wonderful spaces that we create, whether they're indoors or outdoors, will help the guests to just recharge their batteries. I mean, what everybody's missing at the moment is that social contact, that connection of energy, which is not something you can get over a Zoom call. You can get a little bit of emotion, but you can't actually connect with someone's energy. So I think they just want to get back together and spend time almost doing, I know it sounds ridiculous because we're probably doing nothing now, but doing nothing and relaxing in somebody else's company and just taking some of that stress away, whether that's just a bit of meditation or a bit of relaxation. Outside is going to be very important, but people are connecting with nature now. That's the only connection of energy they've got, is to go outside. So I think equally that hibernation element might come into its fore.
Absolutely. And is that going to be trickier, I suppose, to offer people that hibernation element, you know, with potentially new measures in place?
I think it's a new world. I think we're looking at things. There are a few people who feel that these are going to be temporary measures and we're all going to go back to normal. I'm in the camp that life is changed. It's different now forever, whichever way we look at it. Life is never going to go back to where it was. So I think we've just got to all amend what we do and think about how we can improve the services, but still have that connectivity and that mindfulness.
Excellent, thank you. And Phil, I know you had some thoughts on outdoor spaces. I mean, what are you going to introduce any new measures, or are you going to be changing the way that you look after your outside space in terms of reassuring clients and allowing them to connect with nature safely? Oh, I'm not sure if we've lost Phil there. Well, I think we might have lost Phil briefly. We will come back to Phil's points on that. We've touched already on spa as a place for community and social togetherness. I mean, that's always been important, but I think that's going to be even more in demand as we kind of reopen and people have been missing that. So Dave, I don't know if we can perhaps get your thoughts on, is that something that's going to be key for you at Mosaic Health Clubs and Spas?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think, and Emma Jane just touched on it there earlier. I mean, I think we've spent so long kind of isolated from one another that certainly one of our big marketing pushes when we reopen is going to be around the idea of, you know, you've missed your friends. Where's the best place to reconnect with them? And actually spending a day together in the spa, what could be nicer than actually catching up on on all that's happened and what's gone on, and it's a way to just focus on that person that you've not been able to, other than via the Zoom call that like we're doing now. And so yeah, we think that that's a big opportunity for us as a spa destination to kind of push on that fact that this is a great way to reconnect with people you've not been able to get to. I think that's going to be a big part of what we offer and what we can provide once we're able to reopen.
Yeah, and how are you looking at communicating that message, I suppose? Are you really kind of upping your marketing investment in that side of spa?
Yeah, I think it's really just in the images that we use and the stories that we tell. So we think that stories are really powerful. So we're going to be having some little 10-second little videos that we'll be filming of people talking about how great the spa was when I went with my mum or when I went with my friends, and so we think that on social media and on Facebook is really powerful. There's no substitute for people actually telling their story. So I think we're doing that. We're also actually, to be honest, right now still pushing out offers around rewarding and giving people thanks for the help they're giving. So one of our most popular treatments is our raindrop massage, and we've repitched that using obviously what's the symbol at the moment for hope for the NHS is the rainbow massage. So we've called that the rainbow massage, and we're putting that out now in our marketing material and offering people the chance to buy a voucher or to give somebody that as a thank you for what they've been doing whilst we've been going through this difficult period. So I think it's about making sure that we get those messages out there through our normal mediums, such as our e-zines that we do online, but also through using video clips and social media. For us is the biggest way that we drive business into our spas when we're open, and we need to continue to use it now while we're shut to stay in contact with our guests. I think it's never has social media been more important for us. It's just a bit more difficult to fight for the space because there's so many other people out there trying to do the same thing.
Absolutely. And Phil, I think we've got Phil back now. Phil, we were just talking about both the use of outdoor space and also spa as a place for community and social togetherness. What plans have you got over at Horcross to, I suppose, allow that, but allow it in a safe way and welcome people back?
Yeah, I think it's just we hope to communicate all of our increased cleaning protocols to all of our clients and guests, and try and reassure them through every means possible that we're trying to look after them, trying to look after our staff as much as we can. Again, just to reiterate, we've looked at our sort of marketing plan, rejigging packages and treatments to make sure that they're appealing, and I think this is the key time where guests will want to know what you're doing to sort of overcome the situation that we're in. So I think we need to be as transparent as we possibly can be, so everyone gets to some form of normality quickly.
Absolutely, thank you. And Adam, can I just come to you on this? I mean, we're talking about reassuring people, looking at sanitation and disinfection. What are the key messages, I suppose, in this, and how do we as a spa community get that out to clients, that it is a safe place to come, and that these measures are in place?
I think both Dave and Phil made good points there. We have these platforms, social media and doing short videos to be able to communicate with our audiences, with our clients. And whilst one-to-one contact is a huge thing, we can communicate with a lot of people on social at once. And for me, we've always been an industry that's had these incredible hygiene procedures in place, but because of the way we've tried to run our spas, we've kept them hidden from people on purpose, because we want people to feel relaxed. We don't want them to necessarily see all the cleaning that goes on. So now is a great time to actually kind of lift the curtain on that, and not necessarily explain all the additional measures that we're putting in place, but just educate our clients on the things that happen anyway, to reassure them that actually spas were always a very safe and clean place to go to. A lot of the procedures that are in place now, most spas were already doing. So I think it's a great time to, rather than saying we're doing all this new stuff to help you, say, did you actually know this is all the stuff that goes on anyway? And we're going to bring it more front and center, not only to show you that it's happening now, but to show you that these are the things that we've already always been doing. So I think that's a really good time to do that. And like Dave says, again, some little stories to communicate with people on social, on your email letters, on your e-zines, all these different things. And yeah, just kind of keep that message going of these are the things that we've always been doing. We can't wait to have you back to reassure you we're also doing these other things as well. But this is a safe place, and it always has been.
Absolutely, thank you. And Emma Jane, I know you have already got a few measures in place that you've put together. Are you able to share with us a little bit about how you're going to do that and communicate that at Why Boston Knows?
Yeah, the doing it and the communicating it are completely separate issues. I'll start with the doing it. Very helpfully, we have a health and safety consultant company who work with the whole resort, because we've got vastly different things going on in one site. But their help really was for me. I went through the guest journey and realised that there's sort of 147 touch points for every guest that comes through, let alone working on the team's touch points as well. So the first thing was to look at, can we eliminate any of those? Can we open a door and pop it open safely without fire risk, obviously, and not have it closed and have the handle being constantly used? Can we, if we can't eliminate the risk or that particular element, can we substitute it with something that's low contact or no contact? A glass in a bedroom could be, a disposable. Obviously, we're hoping to be sustainable as well, but sustainable disposable would be good for this period of time. If you can't substitute it, then can you engineer the control of it? So, technology. If we can't substitute a check-in, can we do a check-in which is just technology-based, no paperwork, self-checking kiosks, no contact keys, etc. And then I suppose if we can't engineer control, then we've got to sort of try and administrate it. So can we have less people coming through this park? Can we have less staff actually working on a particular rota? Can we keep rotas together? All of that sort of elements of how you pull it all back, but try to keep everybody safe and separate. It's not just about social distancing, it's about maybe keeping crews together. And then the last thing is, if you can't do any of those, you've got to think about, can you PPE? Because to my mind, if you walk into a spa, I don't think the customers are going to want us all with face shields. I mean, I walked into a well-known shopping supermarket the other day, and they were all sheathed up as if I'd gone into hospital, and it actually made me feel anxious. I wanted to go, I'm not going shopping, I don't need food, I'm going to walk backwards. That's good for them because they're being protected, but we want to still have that enhancement that we are a touch industry. We're there to try and help people with their anxiety and their mental health and their mental well-being, as well as their physical well-being. So I think we have to try to find this lovely line between sanity and over hygiene and see how it goes.
Absolutely, and I think that kind of leads us on to the next point really, which is, are there measures that you as spa leaders, I suppose, are introducing to enhance the guest experience, and particularly to balance any changes that have to be made for safety reasons, but also to make spas a more essential experience for people to come back to. Dave, can I come to you on that point?
Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly one of the things that we're looking at with our product house is we're thinking that actually within the day spa experience, we'll actually provide people with their own little amenity gift set, which is a nice touch, and it adds to the customer experience, but it's for them to use while they're there, and it obviously reduces one of the issues. I mean, Emma Jane hit the nail on the head. This is all going to be about touch. I mean, the biggest problem we've got in our spas is not really from people catching it so much through sweat, because we won't, and through pools because the chlorine will kill it, but it's going to be touching hard surfaces. So the traditional showers where we all put the gels in, that's going to be a problem. We're going to be going in and touching that. That's potentially where it'll be. So yeah, things where we can reduce that, give people their own amenity set, so it feels like it's a gift, it's a welcome, it's saying here's this for you, but actually there's a practical element of it as well to say you're going to take that in the shower and you're going to take it home with you and it's yours. So that's one thing that we're looking to work on. We pretty much did a personal tour anyway, but we're going to sort of refocus how we do a tour of the spa when the person arrives on a one-to-one basis, just to kind of help to make sure that we help them to get the most out of their experience. We can get across some of our key measures that are going to try and reduce the chances of infection, and also deal with any concerns they've got on a one-to-one basis, allow them the opportunity to have any concerns that they've got at the start of that spa day when they first come into the spa and we take them round. And one of the other issues where we have real face-to-face contact, which we're therefore going to try and remove, is we're looking into the ways that we'll do our consultation, which we normally do when people arrive. And we do that pre-arrival, whether we do that even via Zoom, actually, because it's better to actually see the person that you're going to meet in the spa. But if not, at least that will enable us to remove that aspect of the therapist sitting with the person and having that consultation at the start. So we want it to kind of feel like you're still being made to feel special. I want it to still feel like you're being cared for and you're our priority. But yeah, we need to remove those chances from both the therapist's perspective as well as the guest perspective of sitting face to face and going through the consultation card. So those are the sorts of things that we're looking at, and we've got another couple of months, sadly, to come up with a few others, but that's part of what we're working on with our team now. We've got a team of people that are looking at what else we could do.
Excellent, thank you. And Phil, I know you also had some thoughts on potential take-home spa kits and things like that, as well as perhaps use of outdoor space. Perhaps you could share that with us, your thoughts on what you might do at Hallcross.
Yeah, we'd like to increase how much we emphasise on the outdoor space and activities that we do. Stuff like we've got a beautiful grounds, gardens, woodland walk. Creating guides for guests to try and go outdoors and enjoy that as much as possible, as well as obviously the surrounding walks that we have. So we're looking at incorporating that into our guest journey a little bit better and a little bit more than what we did in the past. We're actually looking at exploring the possibility, should weather permit, of delivering some treatments outdoors. So we're very early stages of looking at that, but as Dave said, we've got unfortunately a couple of months to put that one together, and depending on if treatments aren't available in the first instance, looking at take-home spa kits to and providing guests with a bit of an educational viewpoint on how to spa at home after they've been here at Hallcross.
Excellent, thank you. And Adam, what are your thoughts on this in terms of really kind of making sure that the experience is right for guests, but not scaring them off, I suppose, with the safety and hygiene that we have to put into place?
Yeah, I really agree with Emma. It wouldn't be spa anymore if you started turning up and everyone's wearing full Darth Vader suits with masks and filtered things going on and face visors. It just isn't going to be the same place. We want them to feel relaxed and taken care of. So those things are going to immediately take away from it. So I do hope that when spas do reopen, that those things are not required. Maybe a face mask as an optional thing, but equally, some clients who are going to be coming, maybe who are in at-risk categories, maybe they need slightly different considerations to the general guests that come in. So it is really, and like Dave said in that pre-arrival questionnaire, asking some of these questions in case some additional protocols do need to be put in place for certain people. But I think one of the biggest things I'm seeing a lot is we are all, to a certain degree, guessing what our clients are going to want at this stage. It's really, really important that we understand what spa goers as a whole are really looking for, so that we can either scale back what we're doing if we're doing a bit too much, or put those things in place. So the UK Spa Association is doing from next week a huge consumer survey in partnership with a couple of publications to try and go out and get these answers for the UK spa audience, to then put out to all the spas to say, look, this is what people are looking for. These are the things you need to be considering. And a lot of places like Emma Jane are doing this a great job of speaking to their own clients. But I think it's important that we all do the same thing, so that as spa goers go to different spas, they're seeing the same things in place, rather than going to one spa and they're fully wearing visors and going to another spa and they've got much more relaxed things going on. I think it's important that we all are singing from the same hymn sheet to a certain degree.
Absolutely, no, it makes complete sense. And as we touched on earlier, I think it is up to us to come up with these types of guidelines as an industry. So that's great, fantastic. And Emma Jane, if I can just go to you, I know that you have got some measures that you're planning in order to just really enhance the guest experience and kind of make people feel a bit special at the spa as well. Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a great believer in just pure, genuine hospitality, warmth. And I think through plexiglass, we're going to have to be even warmer, aren't we? If we do have to have shields at reception and we're using masks in treatments, etc., then I think we're going to have to use a lot more personality and ensure that guests understand the energy that we're transmitting and it's really purposeful every time. So yeah, there'll be a lot more little touches, I think, is the key. It's understanding where we'll be and what we will need to do. We're looking at being as sustainable as possible. So all the way through this process, I've tried to ensure that we haven't dumped everything that we had worked so hard to become as green as possible. And by putting things into practice and doing things mindfully, then hopefully we can keep that sustainability. So things like, you know, the 5-minute meditation mantras, you know, eating your water. So one of the team just talking to the guests from a social distance in the cafe, showing them some foods that they can actually eat, where they can take in water for their health and their skincare. Just 5-10 minute little touches that might just have a little bit of interaction. We're definitely going to be talking wellness. I think everybody is going to be very intrigued about extra immunity and how to keep that going for themselves. I know that Pukka, who we work with, have been flooded with people talking about their immunity products, and I think that will continue for all of us for wellness, how we can continue this exercise, how we can continue to be as well as possible in ourselves. And I think people have actually taken a step back, so it might be a good opportunity for us to really enhance on that and give them even more tools in their toolbox. And I would just like to say thank you to the UK Spa Association, as well as all the governing bodies and yourself, Eve, at Professional Beauty, because this has been an incredibly challenging time. And I think all of the community of spa, salon have really pulled together and really enjoyed the focus that we've been able to get. And talking to other spa directors and colleagues over these sort of venues has been really helpful, because it's been quite difficult at times.
But isn't it interesting, Emma Jane, how all of the things that have been talked about now, wellness, exercise outside, mindfulness, meditation, and all these things, the things that we've been talking about for years, and now it's on the minds of the whole of the general public. So from that point of view, is this potentially not a great thing for the spa industry?
Yeah, completely agree. I think it you know, once we have our governing guidelines of how we're going to work and how we're going to operate, I think this is just exactly what we needed. I mean, it's now mainstream to talk about meditation.
Yeah.
Yes. We are no longer the kookies in the corner. It's fantastic, and I think it's much more accessible. There are, you know, 450 apps now about meditation while you're sitting at work, you know, every type of meditation, rather than just the tantra type of meditation that we've had before.
Absolutely. I think more people have started using those apps. More people have been doing their daily yoga, and they're going to want to start to do that as part of the community again, hopefully, when spas reopen. So absolutely, that's a positive we can take from this. And just moving on, as we have mentioned, spas may or may not be permitted to offer all the treatments immediately. We're not yet sure what those guidelines will be. But what about the thermal areas and wet areas? What are your thoughts around this in terms of social distancing in these, or will these all be safe to reopen as normal? Adam, can I start with you on this point?
I mean, not being an operator myself, I did look into this, and there's certainly no evidence to suggest that it's any more likely to be communicated through being in a sauna or thermal facility than anywhere else. Obviously, it's like Dave says, it's about touching hard surfaces, which you're going to do in a sauna, which you're going to do everywhere else. It's more about the sort of the changing facilities to get into those areas and things like that. But equally, we're dealing with across the board, we're sort of lacking a lot of facts here. They're literally doing the research and bringing it out to us as quickly as we can. But as far as I'm aware, there's no increased chances of the virus being transmitted through thermal facilities other than the standard social distancing rules.
Absolutely. And Dave, I know you have some thoughts on this as well in terms of your planning, the guidelines that we do have and the information that we do have at the moment.
Yeah, I think there's some key messages that as an industry we've got to get out there, which as I'm seeing and from all the research that I've been presented with, is pretty clear. So, you know, COVID-19 is not passed on via sweat. So that's the first thing that we need to reassure people. COVID-19 is less infectious in hot environments and therefore be less likely to be caught in a sauna than in a normal room temperature environment. COVID-19 won't travel any further in humid air. And COVID-19 doesn't survive in water, particularly water that's chlorinated. So pools and hot tubs are very safe environments. The issue, however, having said all of that, is that it clearly does get passed on through vapors and stuff that comes out your nose and the mouth. So that's where the social distancing is important, and that is where it's a challenge for most of us, because you cannot maintain a 6 foot distance in the saunas and steam rooms and the hot tubs that we've got. So whilst social distancing is going to be a core strand of our battle as a nation against COVID-19, it's going to be a challenge in terms of how we manage that in our thermal suites. But I think it's really important that we start to get the message out there about the fact that those environments are safe. It's just going to be how we manage the social distancing aspects of it. And as soon as we get those messages out there, we did some research. I mean, Adam's talking about doing some research. We did a lot of research with our members of our health clubs, which is relevant to this, because actually one of their biggest concerns was that, well, I think I'll catch it through sweat. Actually, no, you won't. And so I think those messages are really important that we get out there. And the other one, which we need to touch on as well and look at, is the air handling part of it as well, because that can be a big concern for us in those hot environments if we're not putting enough fresh air in. So one of the solutions might simply be to dump, I know it's not environmentally friendly, but dump more of our hot air and add in more fresh air into those environments, which means it's going to be less likely to be passed on. But I'd rather take my chances in a sauna than I would going on the London Underground at the moment. And just looking at the people that were traveling yesterday, I mean, it just makes a mockery that we're allowing that to happen, but yet we can't allow people to go in a sauna or a hot tub because they might get too close to someone. So that's inequitable and doesn't make any sense to me.
No, that's really interesting, and I think you make a really good point that it's a huge amount of this is about getting that messaging out there and letting consumers know what is and isn't safe. And I think there's a lot of misinformation and assumptions out there, so I think that's really important. And Phil, can I come to you on this point? How are you planning for reopening in terms of the heat experience and pool area at the moment? Do you have plans in place for that at Holdcross?
Yeah, we were initially we're planning for sort of two different scenarios. One was, those sort of facilities are okay, obviously, but with exercising social distancing. So plans are in place to obviously communicate that through signage. We've got hosting teams and pool attendant teams which will convey that message as well. And then using pre-arrival information to guests to obviously ensure that our guests and members are adhering to that as much as possible. And then the alternative scenario was we wouldn't be able to open those facilities, which is where we would need to then consider our packages and our pricing. We were waiting on finalising some more guidelines before we went ahead with either of those, but UK Active did submit a framework document at the back end of last week. Again, and they allude to the fact that saunas, steam rooms, would be okay, providing social distancing would be able to be exercised. So it's a great document to put in place, waiting on finalised information. But it was a really good starting point to be able to look to plan that social distance inside around those thermal areas.
Absolutely, thank you. And I think that's partly what Dave was touching on as well. There's some really good guidelines from UK Active, or some information from UK Active. We just touched there briefly on potentially having to change pricing. I'm going to skip forward to that if I may, because it's difficult at the moment, isn't it? I think if social distancing means that you do have to dramatically reduce capacity, does that mean you should put up your prices? It's a difficult thing to do when a lot of clients are also struggling financially. Adam, what are your thoughts on pricing?
Oh God, I'm wearing two hats on this one. So I've generally been advising my clients, unless you're having to put a specific cost in place and you can show that specific cost to clients in terms of maybe a package that you have to give to them as they arrive, in case we still need to have PPE for clients and things like that. I think it's going to be a very difficult thing to do. It's going to create some negativity. That said, if your costs are higher, then you've got to do it to protect your business. Another one of the things that we're trying to do at the Spa Association is we're in communication with the Chancellor's office, and we're trying to make sure that if the restrictions that are put in place for spas mean that they cannot get anywhere near their full capacity, we're hoping to try and secure some sort of extra funding for them to offset that, so that prices and things like that don't have to be increased, because that could even further impact negatively the number of people who are able to come back to spas. And it's so vital that we get more people in, or as many as we physically can, whilst being safe, that I would hate to see prices have to increase and force more people out.
Absolutely. And Emma Jane, do you have any plans for that at the moment? I think you have dynamic pricing, don't you, at Wide Austin Lakes? Is that going to impact the way that you do things if we do have to have reduced capacity?
It depends on the amount of occupancy that we are allowed to go forward with. If you're looking at something like 25% occupancy, then you're going to have to choose very carefully which packages you place in there to ensure that you're maximising your, well, it won't be profit at that point, but you're maximising your revenue opportunities. There are two schools of thought. You either wait until you think the occupancies are going to be there so that you can open with the right prices, or you get involved as soon as you can and do the best that you can, knowing that you're moving forward. I mean, we've always had a very strong pricing strategy, so to completely change that now does feel a little bit alien, but there are going to be other costs involved. But you just have to look at it always. If you can't raise the prices, then you have to reduce the costs. And if you can't do either of those and you're not going to make any money, you have to consider whether opening at this point is right, or do you open later or more strongly, or do you open 5 days a week, not 7 days a week? It is. I think it's being dynamic, being practical about it. But yeah, raising your prices now exponentially is going to take some explaining to a customer base.
Absolutely. So perhaps for a lot of businesses, it may be about looking at the packages that you do offer and focusing just on the ones that are bringing in the most revenue and potential profit.
Certainly, maybe it's time to not be paying commission to other venues. Maybe it's thinking about not having your offers on certain days, or if you struggle with days of the week to open and be profitable, then maybe those days are the days you don't open to begin with. So yeah, I think there's all sorts of opportunities for you to look at.
Absolutely. And Phil, do you have any thoughts and any plans for this at Hallcross? Would you open with reduced capacity or would you hold off? And what are your plans on pricing?
Certainly no plans to increase pricing at this stage. I don't think that's probably it's not the right thing to do. We were initially planning for a 30 to 40% occupancy, which it seems to be consistent around some of the other spas that I've been in sort of dialogue with. So yeah, we're just trying to plan on being able to look at other areas of the business, in terms of how we staff certain areas, what are the right packages to have in place initially, to try and be able to be, not have to look at any other means other than. So yeah, it's more analysing what packages we have live straight away and what we look to phase in.
Absolutely. I think I might have slightly lost you at the end, but absolutely, no, that makes a really good point. I just want to move on to Dave on this. Dave, would you open with reduced capacity, or would you hold off until you can kind of be fully operational?
Well, I think the problem is, isn't it? You're not going to know what your capacity is until you open. So it's a bit of a tricky one. It's a bit chicken and egg, because I don't know until we open exactly how many bookings we're going to be getting, pretty much. So, and I think we're recognizing that we tried where possible to see if people wanted a refund for the period that when we went into closure. Then we did give people a refund, but an awful lot of people are waiting to rebook. So actually, we're going to reopen. It's one of the challenges I'm sure many spas have got. We've got a whole army of people that are waiting for us to open our doors to come back in, who've already paid for their spa day, and we've got to accommodate them and look after them. So I think that's the first challenge. We want to get back open. We want to get our staff back working, providing they're happy to come back and work for us, and we want to get back and driving in business, because there's nothing more likely to get us to get bookings than the fact that we're open. So I think that's the first point. We're then our job to try and drive up capacity. I think the pricing thing is going to be challenging because our costs will have gone up. But I would say, you know, if you're in a position where you think you can put your price up now, why on earth didn't you have your prices higher before all this happened? Because actually, you know, you should have been charging more then. It's going to be more challenging now because there will be less disposable income. We are going to go into a recession. It's inevitable. Unfortunately, I'm old enough and grey enough, as you can probably see, that I've lived through a couple of recessions already, and spas tend to hold up pretty well in recessions because people still want some form of escape and some way to treat themselves. So I think we have to play on that. I think it's about being creative. You know, one of the things that, you know, we need to look about is how we maximize our yield. So, you know, we will be really working hard with any sort of third party group salespeople that we work with to make sure that we're not giving too much away with them and trying to drive as much revenue in direct, so we're not paying out as much commission. That's one way to significantly improve our yield, and providing we've got, you know, fortunately we've built up a database. We have a really large, strong database, so we're going to be going to them direct rather than working through agencies, and therefore giving up quite a bit of chunky commission. And I think it's turning what is a challenging situation with people's concerns about infection into positive. So where we have fairly small spas, you know, we're going to be doing exclusive use. So actually, you know, come with your friends, exclusively use the spa. It will be all yours, which sounds nice, but is actually another way of saying, at least you know if you're going to get it, who you're going to get this COVID from, because actually, you know, so the idea of exclusive use in the past has seemed elitist, but we actually see there's some real new benefits of that people are going to think, well, I'm not going to go and aspire loads of other people. I'm only going to go with friends and family that I know, and I'll actually feel more comfortable about that. So that's a way that we provide exclusive use. It's a way possibly to say you're paying for exclusive use, so you've got to pay a little bit more, but actually it's a great way of managing people's expectations. So I think it's about being creative with the way that you offer your prices, rather than necessarily thinking, oh blimey, my costs have gone up by X, so I need to put my price up, because I think that is going to be really difficult to do.
We'll come on to questions at the end, but I have just seen a couple of people have commented on this in the question box. If we can just touch on it briefly. Obviously, if there are additional measures for sanitation and health and safety, costs will go up, as you've touched on. Do you, as a panel, have any kind of ideas at this stage of how much of a cost increase there will be, or what you're sort of planning for in terms of spend on this health and sanitation measures, what people can maybe plan for on that level? Don't know who to start with, Phil. I don't know if
I'll go, as everyone went quiet. Do you know, I think it is quite difficult to predict exactly what that is, because until we know exactly what the measures are, it's quite difficult to state. What I would say is that actually, you know, and it's a point that I think Adam made really well earlier on, is that we work really hard on our cleanliness, and actually, you know, therefore, depending upon, I think the issue is more around the biggest cost is going to be around social distancing and the impact that has in terms of capacity. That's going to be the issue. The actual cleanliness of the spa, I mean, if we're going to have to provide PPE, and who knows yet, that's not certain, well, that's obviously an additional cost. But in terms of the actual cleanliness, you know, we were pretty fastidious in terms of the way that we cleaned our spas and the way we clean rooms down after treatment. So I'm not seeing a huge increase going to be coming in there. Clearly, there may be some issues around PPE. There may be some one-off costs if we've got to put you know, the Perspex screens in for certain treatments. But it's slightly odd, isn't it? If you're going to have a Perspex screen at reception, and that's necessary, but then we're going to take them into a treatment room where, I mean, you can't have a Perspex screen up while you're doing a facial, can you? So it's kind of like, you know, why do we need that at reception if we're going to be doing facial later on? It just seems a bit incongruous, and that's I think we've got to be really clear about that, because that's sending such mixed messages. I need one on reception, but I don't need it when I'm going to deliver you a facial. You know, I'm struggling to justify that. So I think the costs are going to be more around issues around providing comfort and support to staff and making sure that they're comfortable in putting measures in place for them. and it's going to be around having to allow greater gaps between treatments to ensure that we thoroughly clean the rooms between each and every treatment. So actually the number of treatments we can get in a day, that might go down a little bit. So it's those sorts of things and the physical and the social distancing. Those are things that, again, I think potentially increase our costs. And until we know what the protocols are going to be, it's difficult to work out.
It's hard to say how much. Yeah, I mean, we're having lots of comments in the comments box saying, I think there will have to be an extra cost to treatments, not necessarily because of PPE, because of the increase in prices of cleaning products and items, and as you say, of social distancing. So I think it sounds like there's different thoughts out there in terms of whether price increases are going to be essential. But yeah, I guess, as you say, we'll have to wait and see exactly what the measures are in terms of them having to comply. I do want to finish on a few positive notes, but I'd like to touch up, just make sure we have time for questions, because we've had absolutely loads of questions through here as we've gone along. So if we can just go through some of those questions now, that would be fantastic. I think a lot of these things we have touched on as we've gone along, as I say. We've had a recent question is, how about using UV light or other sanitizing devices? Do any of you have plans around that? Have you bought equipment, or are you planning on buying equipment in order to add to your hygiene processes?
We actually have purchased a sanitizer machine which you place into a treatment room or any room, and it runs on a cycle, and it sanitizes that room whilst that room's closed. So it's we were quite fortunate to have that prior to obviously COVID-19, but it's something that we're actually going to now start to really include in our operating procedures for treatment rooms. We're quite lucky with the amount of treatment rooms we have that we can potentially look to move treatments between treatment rooms throughout the day. So it gives us potentially an opportunity to sanitize a full treatment room in between treatments, and that's just something we're looking at drawing up. So.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? Any equipment or anything? If not, we will move on. I think one of the questions that quite a few people have asked in the Q&A box here on Zoom is about massage. How is it possible really to implement social distancing? I mean, it's not in massage. So we've discussed that COVID-19 can't be passed on through sweat, but it's the social distance that's the difficult thing in treatment. So what are your thoughts on that, I suppose, in reassuring clients and in bringing treatments back, and when it's safe to do that?
I think it's down to...
No problem answering that. Or are you going to go, Adam?
No, you go for it, Emma.
I think from a treatment point of view, it's going to be about confidence. It's going to be about confidence of teams, confidence of guests. You can eliminate as much as possible, but one-on-one treatment is just going to be about somebody accepting there is potentially a small risk, as there would be if they had a cold or any other form of disease or disorder, and the person who's doing the treatment having that confidence to do treatments. I think it will come back. I think it will come back stronger than ever. We're all a bit stumped about the extra hygiene, because I think we've mentioned it 3 or 4 times in this panel already. We're already doing so much. If there's little things that you can do, then you're going to add that in. If there's anything you can do to improve the confidence, then do that. But I think hands-on treatments will come back. We just don't know at the moment when. Nobody wants to put a line down and say that is when we're going to be able to do them, because we don't know. We've not done this before. Dave, I'm with you. I've lived through a couple of recessions, and they're tough, but we sort of knew what they were going to be. We sort of understood how it was going to feel. This is completely uncharted. So be patient, take time, be creative, and see what we can do in the meantime. There's some very interesting memes out there of long-handled gloves on poles doing massage for a spa in Arizona and things. I'm not sure I want to go that far, but I think we've just got to be patient.
Yeah,
I'm looking for a therapist with arms like Mr. Tickle. We'll be fine.
Brilliant, love it.
And another question that we've had is, are you all looking to add time to your treatments to allow for the additional cleaning that might be needed, or the additional consultation type period? Are you going to work that into your treatment timings?
Yeah, our changeover time's going to have to go up. I think that's inevitable, and we're looking at that across the board, not just with our treatments, but we run health clubs as well. So when we do classes, another big thing will be the changeover time between classes, so that we can get in and clean the room between that. So yeah, I think that's partly going to have to happen, and as I keep coming back to saying, part of this is going to be driven by our therapist teams, because it's really important that our therapists feel safe, and it's going to be important that our guests feel safe. You know, I think we were talking about, I can't remember if we were talking about this when we were live or just when we were meeting up in the green room before we started. But, you know, I reckon if we open tomorrow, we'd be pretty busy, you know. I reckon there are plenty of people that would be more than happy to come in and have a massage tomorrow. And so it's more about actually managing the whole situation from public perception, from our staff's perception, etc. And I just want to say that one other thing about this whole safety thing is, do you know what, that actually, you know, when it is about what's caught from your face, as we've said. So a massage, if someone's having a back massage and laying on the bed, actually you're in a far less likely position to catch it than you are when you're walking through the changing rooms or when you're walking into the club from the car park. And so we have to just try and balance that whole kind of, you know, what are the risks here, and manage that, because it's not just I mean, social distancing is important, but why is the social distancing important? It's actually when we're face to face, it's when we're looking at each other that's the real issue. So we have to kind of manage that a bit.
And it's also about the R number, that we've been told about this a lot, but that's being managed in terms of no mass gatherings, because that's where one person could infect huge numbers of people and reintroduce that exponential growth. If it's a one-on-one massage, particularly if you've gone to that trouble of communicating with clients beforehand, trying as much as you can to make sure that they've not had symptoms or anything like that, you know, you can manage that to a certain degree. And hands-on treatments with one person isn't going to increase that R rate exponentially, like, for example, you know, everyone hanging out in a confined space like on the tube, like Dave was saying earlier on. That's got a much higher rate of increasing that than a one-on-one massage.
Absolutely. Another question along the same lines from Amanda Hardy here is, how do you plan on managing member footfall through your business? Particularly with a focus on members, a lot of member tariffs can currently access the facility as and when they'd like to. So what do you have plans for balancing this out without annoying them, I suppose, without the risk of them requesting reduced tariffs? Emma Jane, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, or to put you on the spot.
Well, I don't have any members, darling, so
it's not one for you.
What answer? They're all day spa and residential guests, so it was a business decision not to take on a membership with the Y Spa.
Sure. Dave,
probably more of a Dave question.
Yeah, perhaps one for you then, Dave, because I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mute now. Yeah, so no, I think Joe, I think members will be just really keen to get back in and use the facilities. Certainly, that's what we're seeing. So I think you know, it's about trying to manage their expectations. It's about trying to provide them with reassurance of exactly what it is that we're going to be, how we're going to be looking out for them, how we're going to be minimizing the risks, what protocols we've got in place, and just providing that reassurance. And I think that's going to be the critical things. I think members are going to be an important part of the mix for us going forward. But certainly what we're seeing on our social media streams and from the questionnaires that we're doing, you know, there's a huge amount of pressure for us to kind of get back open, which obviously we won't do until the government give us the go ahead. But I think I think members are really keen to just get back in and start using the facilities.
Absolutely, we've had quite an encouraging comment actually from Alina Stavniak over in the comment section saying, here in the US, some spas have already reopened and they were pleasantly surprised on customer demand for the spa. The phones were ringing for bookings, same for salons. So it seems to be trending better than all of us expected out there. So hopefully that's encouraging for us when we get open over here too. There's been a couple of questions about screening, so whether we're doing any testing, either of testing of staff or screening questions for guests in terms of health before arrival. Does anyone have any plans for either of those?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna do our pre-arrival consultation actually the day before, or maybe 2 days before. So that gives us an opportunity to ask some questions there. I think one of the things that we're also going to be doing, which I haven't mentioned, is that we're going to have basically, when you arrive at the spa, there's going to be a very clear banner that will say, here's our commitment to you in relation to COVID-19. Here's our commitment to you. And these are all the things that we're doing, and a list of all the things that we've just talked about. And here's what we're expecting from you. And one of those will be, if you feel unwell, don't come to the spa. And I think we have to make sure that we realize that there is personal responsibility for individuals here as well. And we're going to be right up front at the door. When you walk past, it's going to be a sign. This is what we expect from what you can expect from us. And this is what we're expecting from you. And that would include, be respectful of other people, maintain a social distance from other people. And I think part of this testing, the root of that lies in what we're planning to do there. So we've got to rely on people and guests to be responsible and sensible, and recognise that they have that responsibility towards what they do. And if they don't feel well, don't come in. And I feel really uncomfortable about buying a thermal machine that's going to take people's temperature when they come through the door. I mean, just imagine the scene. I'm going to put one of my reception team and expect them to explain to someone that's just driven an hour that because our machine says their temperature is 1 degree higher than we're allowing in, they've got to turn around and go back home. I feel uncomfortable about that. I feel like that's a tough situation that I would find tough to handle. So goodness knows how hard it would be for one of my reception teams to try and turn someone away because now apparently their temperature read incorrectly or read correctly, but it was a bit high. That I'm not sure that sits well with me.
Agree.
What about, Phil, do you have any different measures in mind for that? What about kind of testing staff or checking staff's health as well before arrival?
Yeah, I mean, we've got an online facility, an online portal, which should be live for when we hopefully reopen, which is almost where a staff member will complete a daily risk assessment, and a little bit like what Dave was saying is as well as staff and guests, I think, with everyone being so highlighted by this pandemic that's around, is everyone enters into kind of like a social contract. You'd like to think that guests wouldn't want to be, if they're symptomatic in any way, shape or form, that they wouldn't want to go into a spa, and likewise with our staff as well. So I think what's come from this is everyone's in this together, and if we're going to pull out of this in a really positive way, that we everyone needs to stick together and follow the guidelines that we've been told. So
absolutely, thank you. There's one more question that we've just had regarding sanitation. I mean, we've been sanitising rooms, etc. But what are the panel's views on uniform changes between one-to-one treatments? Does anyone have any measures in place for that? Emma Jane, I don't know, is that something that you've been discussing or considering?
Not between treatments. I think disposable, sustainable, if you can find them, disposable aprons might help. But again, we're looking at transmission, aren't we? And what is the risk of transmission and transmitting it then to other guests? So if we're keen enough that we're going to do one-on-one treatments and everybody that's coming in is saying they're well, the therapist is saying they're well, and we move forward to have this communication, have a treatment and a sharing of energy, then I think it's important to not bring things in from the outside, get rid of paraphernalia. If there's cushions and blankets and covers everywhere, then get rid of as much as you can from a hygiene point of view, and keep as hygienic as possible. But washing between treatments could be really challenging on uniform cost, and also the ability to be able to do that in small salons. So I think we've got to have an industry-wide attack on this.
Yep. If
people go completely off-piste and start doing that in one venue, as Adam said earlier, I think that's just going to send us all into paroxysm. So we need to be calm and approach it, with the right attitude, and with the right emphasis on the health and safety, and also, not losing our soul as an industry.
Yeah, I like that. Minimization rather than overreaction, I think, is the watchword we need to go with.
Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you. One other question we've had from Rachel Lowe, hi Rachel, is do you think that this could lead to more staff calling in sick? Do you think that could get harder to manage? Do you have any thoughts on that or any processes in mind for that?
I mean, sorry,
Dave.
go
on. No, carry on, Dave.
I was going to say, I think if they call in sick, they call in sick. So I'm not sure what process you can put in place in that regard. Undoubtedly, we're going to have therapists who are really concerned about coming back and feeling reluctant to work. And I think it's finding those, or we're already talking to them about what those concerns are. It's finding out what it is that worries them and giving them the reassurance on what we're doing in the same ways we're going to be doing that with our guests. Well, there may well be, though, some people that are in certain, so medical conditions or with their home situation where they just feel uncomfortable about coming into work, and that's something that we, as employers, we've got a duty of care to work through how we manage that.
Absolutely. Emma Jane, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I fully agree, really. That's the crux of everything. If you've got a good team, you've got good communication, and you're honest and upfront and transparent about the rules and regulations of what we expect and what we don't expect. If somebody's not well, they shouldn't be coming to work.
Yeah.
If you've got absenteeism, which I think is a different thing, if you've got people who are not coming to work for not a genuine illness or not a genuine reason, then that obviously needs to be dealt with as it would do in any normal circumstance. Nothing has changed about managing performance and managing absenteeism. But if you've got a good team, then the key is going to be communication. You might have somebody who feels great one day and feels really positive, and they come in, they do everything, it's all wonderful. They see a news article in the evening, or a friend talks to them on social media, and I can't believe you went into work today. And they might feel anxious and have anxiety the next day. So I think we're all living through this, aren't we? Nobody has a roadmap. We can all criticize the other people with their roadmaps, but nobody else knows what to do. So what we're doing is trying to put one foot in front of the other and do it with, heart and good energy and a good sense of intention. And hopefully all the teams will do the same. I certainly know that my team are all keen to get back into a sense of purpose and what they want to do. But they all have different viewpoints.
Absolutely. And I think we are kind of getting tight for time. So just a couple more questions. There's one from Leslie Caster who's asked, can we be confident in saying that we're creating a safe environment? I.e., are we making ourselves liable if a client does contract a disease within, say, 10 days of visiting the spa? Do we need to be looking at wording without stating the word safe and without, I suppose, making promises? Adam, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
I think you can absolutely say it's a safe environment. You're doing everything you can to make it a safe environment. As long as you are doing those things, then absolutely, you would never have not said you were a safe environment before for someone to catch some other illness whilst there. It could happen in the car park, it could happen anywhere. So all you can say is these are the things we're putting in place to create a safe environment for you to come here. I think there's no liableness in there. I'm sure someone could try and make a case out of it somewhere, but no, I think you have to use words like that. If you try and obfuscate things like that, then you're going to miss the mark with reassuring your clients.
Yeah, again, it's another reason why we're stronger together. If we all do the same thing and we all have a set of guidelines, then we're all working on the same song sheet, and I think that's really important.
Absolutely, and I think that's quite a nice note to finish on, Emma Jane. Thank you. We were going to just perhaps ask everyone what are the positives you're taking from this, because I think we've all spoken a lot about the challenges and how we might tackle those, but obviously there have been some positives, and we touched on it a bit earlier about the spa industry as a community coming together and really kind of helping each other out through the platforms like this and lots of other organisations doing webinars and meetings, and it's been really nice to see. And I suppose what are the positives you're going to take from this, Adam? I
think there's three for me. There's one that I already mentioned, of the fact that never before has the stuff that we've been trying to educate people about been more on the minds of everybody in the general public. And as long as we can connect that consciousness with what we provide and show people that is what we've been all about all this time, the well-being, the exercise, the mindfulness, all of those kind of things. So I think it's a huge opportunity for us to actually get in front of that now and show people that is what we do. The other thing I think is, in terms of, we talked earlier on about tech. Now, typically as an industry, we've been appalling at embracing new technology. So this whole experience has forced salons and spas to embrace more technology, learn new things, put new things in place. So I think it's created a huge leap forward in the amount of technology that's going to be embraced, and how that can actually help businesses in the spa and salon world moving forward. So I think that's a great thing. And kind of aside from the industry, I just think this whole time has given us that pause to slow down, to reappreciate the things in our lives that once taken away, we really, really miss. So for some people, that is going to be spa. For some people, that's just going to be getting out into nature. So I think it's been a great experience for us to all realize what is important to us, the things that once taken away, we miss in our lives. So I think those are the things that we really do, as much as all the fear and worry and everything. I think those are the things we need to focus on as a positive to take away from this time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dave, what about you? Any last
Yeah, I think certainly. I think, you know, people are wired to be in community. We want to be around people. So this is that's why so many people have found this tough. And I think this time in isolation, people will get people thinking about what it is that they value. And I think they're far more likely to come back out of this with a kind of a work to live attitude rather than a live to work attitude, which tended to perhaps prevail before. So, and I think the spa industry is a great form of escapism, of luxury, of pampering, of being made to feel special. And I think will sit as one of the many but great solutions to that kind of work to live attitude that hopefully people will come back with a lot more.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Phil, what about you? Any last thoughts on the positives we can take from this whole situation?
It's just been unbelievably fantastic to see, you know, everyone coming together, you know, nationally, internationally, the amount of information that's being shared, you know, best practice ideas. And I know, and I have so much confidence that this is going to continue even past, you know, this current situation that we find ourselves in. I might have to slim down the amount of WhatsApp group because my phone memory's, you know, getting destroyed. But it's all for the greater good, and yeah, it's just been brilliant to see everyone coming together. So
fantastic. And Emma Jane, just before we leave, any last thoughts from you?
Just one, really. I've never been prouder than being part of this industry right now. With all of the difficulties that we've faced and all of the things that we're contemplating in the future, I can't tell you the energy that's coming out of the teams, the leadership, the associations, all of our industry coming together. I just think the opportunity is just now. So take it, grab it right now.
Excellent. Well, that's again a beautiful note to end on. Thank you. So I just need to say thank you so much to Dave Courtine, Emma Jane North, Adam Chatterley and Phil Murphy. I think a really, really strong panel, and I think we've had some great comments as we've gone along about how useful people have found this. So really appreciate your input today. And for anyone else, the next session that we have is 3 p.m. So we better finish up so they can prepare for that. And that is a risk assessment and business continuity plan from Ireland. So do join us for that one. But until then, thank you all for watching and goodbye.
Bye.
bye.